if you're seriously considering starting a new game Clash, you should hear the rumours surrounding the setting. Deep within the hull of the Ishimura, there is an artifact from a more ancient part of the solar system. An artifact which has wreaked havoc across this station, and if in the wrong hands, will likely cease to... Oh, okay, that's all you're getting, right? I'll give up.
Ah, it's still going to be the intro, though.
It's just taking over my personality. I've just got to repress the accent down.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Real Podcasters. This is a weekly podcast that we do where we discuss all things movies, TV shows, video games and a bunch of other things in no particular order. My name's Regan as ever and I'm joined once again by my glitchy Twitcher co-host. It's Dan.
Glitchy a little bit, I can't even say that.
No you can't, you're like me.
I'm just lagging like them. Hello you smelly poisonous Weezer.
You're assuming I'm smelly? Good God. How dare you, Dan? How dare you insult me in the segment where it's free to just insult each other?
Yeah, it's
every
just
single
free
week.
For all. Within the first 10 seconds of this podcast, it's just free for all.
I'm trying to think which was the worst insult.
I'd probably say Pirates of the Caribbean because that one was just
I was going to say Pirates of the Caribbean, you absolute arse.
so unexpected, but yet so funny.
Call me a cannonball one more time. Well, thank you very much for clicking on this episode. We really do appreciate it, especially considering that I've got a few things to say because I forgot to mention it last week when we spoke about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Previously, we spoke about the Temple of Doom, and the view count on our T-Side Comic-Con special from last year became the first episode that we'd ever put out to do over 100 views, which was
it's
really
now
cool.
At 105.
105, yeah. And then some little episode talking about some adventurer in a hat in the desert looking for his missing mug. All of a sudden did like 3 times that. The Last Crusade episode's now on 335 as of us.
I know that. It's baffling though.
I don't know what we said.
You.
Yes, yeah, seriously, thank you very much. And we did get an uptake in subscribes as well, which is really cool. But seriously, why? Why is it that one that got us? I don't get it at all.
So the last time I honestly checked, it was like it was getting near enough what Raiders was view count wise, which was like 60 odd or something like that. And then I went to bed, woke up to a message: Dan, look on YouTube. Looks on YouTube, and then I find that Last Crusade has like 250 views.
Yeah, clearly the algorithm was our friend last week, so...
I mean, we're doing something right. I don't know what it is, but we're doing something right.
Yeah, hopefully that carries over for future episodes, otherwise that's going to look a bit... It's going to look a bit like we just bought views. Obviously, if you did catch our last episode, thank you very much. This week, though, we are returning to a video game, which I don't think we've done for a little while, unless I've immediately forgotten. This week, we are discussing the remake of Dead Space from last year. This was a game that surprisingly, I did want to play quite a bit of when it first got announced, which was odd because I'd never played a single Dead Space game in my life. I believe, technically, my Xbox history lists Dead Space 3, but I think that was my stepbrother playing it back in, I don't know, 2013, 2014. So I've got no nostalgia for this franchise. I did play the original last year because all 3 games were on Game Pass back then, and this was like 50 or 60 quid, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that for a remake of a game I haven't even played yet. So it's a bit of a so I only got a couple of chapters into that one and then was like, no. It was actually literally about this time last year, which is the last time I got an achievement on that game, which was complete chapter 2 on any difficulty. So I didn't get far. It has been. And then I think it was late last year, the remake finally came to Game Pass, which was really convenient because I still wouldn't want to spend an overtly amount of money on it.
I don't get that price tag. It's for a remake as well. That just seems very greedy.
Yeah. Although that being said, when I've been doing my research on this remake, there is a little bit more going on than I realised because I just immediately assumed, oh, it's just a visual upgrade. There is extra bits and bobs. Yeah. Though, because you've played the other games before, you can give me a little bit more insight into sort of like the changes and stuff, especially considering I got about 2 hours into the other one. So I'm not exactly, I'm not exactly yeah, exactly. I'm not the forerunner of knowledge when it comes to this franchise. In regards to this one though, so this one was released back in January 2023, and as I say, it's a remake of the original game from 2008. This was actually pointed out by my girlfriend because she watched us play both the original and the remake, and one of the things that she pointed out was that she thought that the lead character Isaac was silent in the original game. I couldn't remember because it had been a year, so I was like, I've got no idea. I'm not going to go back to that.
Yeah, he's a total mute in the original game.
Obviously, we'll go into full spoilers for this game, but Dan, would you like to explain the basic plot of what's going on in this really dead space out there?
This very unalive area.
Unalive area. That sounds like the best, worst kind of like parody of this game.
Yeah, just a bootleg of it.
Unalive house.
Unalive house. No, this involves engineer Isaac Clarke and his crewmates infiltrating the USS Ishimura, a planet cracker ship from what I remember. I don't really pay attention to this ship, and honestly, I just await the horror within. Anyway, it turns out they go to the ship. It's completely abandoned, and it turns out the ship has been infiltrated by some horrific abominations known as necromorphs, and at the centre of it lies a ancient artifact called the Marker, which is basically responsible for all the death and havoc upon the ship. So it's up to Isaac to basically send the Marker back where it came from and hopefully live to tell the tale. Spoiler, he does.
Well, considering there's
Because
two
otherwise we
sequels,
wouldn't
I
have Dead Space
assume he
2.
makes it. Before we get into my thoughts on this, because you've got more of a history with the franchise,
Yes.
what were your thoughts on the original game and then this one?
I've played the original a lot. I've sank plenty of hours into it. So I know pretty much like all the mechanics of the remake and this. I mean, the remake was a lot more refreshing, but I'll get into that when we discuss it further. So I did it on the hardest difficulty as well. I don't know why. I
don't know why either.
It's like one of the only games that I'm good at, apparently.
I literally was on the final chapter of this less than 48 hours ago. I was like right down to the wire. Okay, so
Oh god, here we go.
it's a very pretty game. I'll give it that. It is.
It is, yes.
It is very, very good looking. Very, very, very reminiscent of something like Alien Isolation when it comes to just the atmosphere of just walking around this dilapidated, crappy spaceship. Because heaven forbid you play a horror game set in a very pristine, clean looking spaceship that's just beautiful. Everything's working. All the elevators are working absolutely fine. You don't need to go down one corridor, have one mission, suddenly a lever snaps off and runs away. You're like, oh no, I'm going to have to go to the other side of the ship and get another lever. Bugger. And then just procrastinate for 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think if that was honestly the case with it, you'd have maybe 2 chapters and then the game would be done. Like if everything was just working absolutely fine.
I would like to play that though. That'd be quite fun.
Happy space.
Happy space. Fun space. I love the score as well. I think it's really effective and the voice acting is pretty solid, all things considering. That being said, I am getting major Halo 2 vibes with Dead Space in that it's very pretty, but my god is it frustrating to play. The difficulty of this thing, bear in mind, I played it on medium. I played it on lightweight mode.
Somewhat normal on a Halo game.
Somewhat normal, yeah. The difficulty, even on medium, ranges from hard to full wanker. Usually it's Dan who's like the first one to start swearing in this. We're talking about Dead Space. It's going to be me swearing first. And there is a bit of a confession on this game that I'll get to a little bit later on. But occasionally it was getting to the point where the game wasn't fun. And I did have to quit for either a day or like a week. Hence why I didn't get to the final chapter until 2 days ago. Because initially I was like, actually I'm doing well going through a chapter a day. Then I got to chapter 6 and I was like, nah, this is, nah, I'm turning off.
I remember you sending me the message on Facebook. And I asked like what chapter you want, and you got the turn by bit. It's like, well, I've just burned to death in a turbine, so I'm fucking golden.
Was that chapter 7, I think it was.
Yeah. See, that's enough Dead Space for today.
Yeah, it was. A lot of the time, I think we did actually word this quite similarly with Halo 2, in that it rarely felt like an achievement to complete something in this game. It just felt more like a sigh of relief that it was over.
Really?
Again, this could just be nitpicky, because, again, there are things I like in this game. The ending. We'll get to that. So, talking about our main character, of course, we've got Isaac Clarke, voiced by Gunnar Wright, who apparently voices the character in the other 2 games. For some reason doesn't talk in the first. Did they have a retroactive reason as to why he doesn't talk in this? Is he just scared?
No, I think it was just they decided to just have a mute character, which I've never really liked about the original. So when I played the remake and he was fully voiced, I was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to play as this stupid git for like 14 hours of game time and he just doesn't say a word. Like, how do people know what his expression is going to be like? Because he doesn't talk, he just stares at you blank.
It's one of those things where, like, you can... Even, like, the Master Chief isn't, like, completely mute, he just doesn't talk a lot. And you can get away with that. But with Dead Space, I didn't think there was ever, like, a real reason to do that. It was just, we're going to do it because it might be slightly
Well, I mean, the only
easier.
time that he has audio is when he's just murdered horrifically by alien mutants.
In my case, that happens once
Far
every
too often.
once every 7 to 8 seconds. Although, actually, then, so if he never talks in that original game, does he ever take off his helmet? Because I know because obviously he does in this one fairly often.
I mean,
I
it's
imagine
been
that he
a
doesn't
while
do it
since I played the original, but I'm gonna say no because I don't remember any like helmet taking off. I mean, maybe in the end bit. I honestly couldn't remember.
I mean, with a character like Isaac, I mean, visually, I think he's an interesting character. I think like the design for the armor is really, really cool, especially when you eventually get upgrades and stuff. I never got to the final upgrade. It was too expensive, to be honest.
Yeah, I still don't have it as well, actually. I think I've won before, but the level 6 suit is like nearly like 100,000.
I think it was 60,000 for that one and then 45,000 for the one that I did get. But that was after selling literal ammo for guns in order to get it. In order to, you have
to become a bit of a pack rat when you start buying the upgrades and stuff. You just got to like search all over the Ishimura for things you can sell.
Yeah, and I think with this character, I mean, he's fine, but I didn't find myself like overwhelmingly engrossed in his story and his, we'll say, fractured relationship with little Nicole, who I'll be completely honest, I was banking on this pretty much immediately that there was gonna be some sort of dark reveal with her, especially given the dialogue towards the end, which might as well spell out, I'm gonna sound like a villain today. Like, it's just so vague.
I see where you're coming from.
It's like really bad, vague, and ominous dialogue, and I absolutely despise it. I was like, right, if she's not revealed to either be dead, a monster, or a villain,
yeah, it's kind
any
of to
one
the
of
point
those
where
three.
she's like, where she says, "Make us whole again." I'm like, Isaac, how many crazy people have you ran across during your mission to go get your girl who say "make us whole" and then have attempted to kill you with one thing or the other?
Exactly.
It's a bit of a red flag.
I kept on forgetting that there was the whole subplot with the Space Church, as I'll call them. I don't know what they're actually called. They probably have a name. I don't know what it is. I can't remember.
Unitology or something like that.
That's almost as bad as unobtainium in bloody Avatar.
Unobtainium?
Like, someone came up with that name and was like, yeah, that's fine. I like that name. No, James Cameron. No.
Unitology is something like that. I think it's unitology.
Unitology.
Space Church.
Space Church, we'll go back to, yeah. Yeah, just that whole thing with her is just so overwhelmingly predictable. And yeah, she's revealed to be dead. Don't care. Again, she just sounded like so overwhelmingly generic, but then so does everyone in this game. Like, if I'm good, again, I'm getting nitpicky. I'm just watching Dan's face just sort of quiver. Your reactions is exactly what it was for me with bloody Halo Infinite last year. It was just constantly quivering. Just like, oh god, he's getting angry. I wasn't supposed to get angry. I'm going to go and step to one side. Was the game as predictable for you?
Nah.
I'm going to go with no. Nah.
Nah. I mean, considering I played the original a lot, all the dialogue and stuff feels totally refreshed. It's if it's been put through a tumble dryer and just all the best bits of it just come out.
Oh, that's interesting. I would also say it sounded like it went through a tumble dryer, except the tumble dryer died.
Or in your case, the giant turbine.
The giant turbine.
I find it hilarious the fact you've died to more environmental hazards than you have to the friggin' alien mutants.
To be honest, I don't think I got killed by the turbine that often. It just happened surprisingly enough that it just kind of bothered me.
It was just very inconvenient.
It's the world's most inconvenient fiery turbine of devastation.
Well, with the first game, right? Like, there's, that scene where I think it's chapter 2 where you go to the morgue to get the captain's rig.
Yeah.
In the original game, it's like the most generic kind of like cutscene ever. It's not even a cutscene. You're just literally standing there and just and the infected drops down from the roof and infects the captain, and then the necromorph bursts out of a window. But in the remake, it's totally different. It's revamped. It has like a cutscene and everything. It's really quite horrific. I wasn't expecting it.
That one, I think I was stuck in for a while. That's probably what it was. It was probably that section that I stopped playing on, I think, because I just couldn't get past it, and I was quite lucky to even get past it in the remake, to be honest. Again, I don't have much of a memory in terms of comparisons between the first two chapters in both versions, because, again, I couldn't really remember too much. All I know is that I've looked at the list of upgrades that this version has, in particular when it comes to like the 0G sequences. At least he actually has a thruster this time.
Oh, so much better.
Mm-hmm.
It was so unbelievably clunky in a game from like 16 years ago, which is understandable. But when you go to play it now, it's just like, oh my god, this is just horrendous. There's a very specific mission in the original Dead Space, which is, well, I'd say it's utterly horrendous in terms of, like, put it this way, it's your entire thought on the difficulty of this game, but it's just one mission in the original Dead Space that just, it's psyche breaking. So you remember, I think it's chapter 4, where you have to basically reroute all the power to the asteroid defense system.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's a mission that's totally revamped, because in the original one, you basically went up to where this asteroid gun was, and you essentially played Asteroid Destroyer, more or less.
Uh-huh.
But it was absolutely infuriating because you had limited ammo. I mean, it would replenish, but it would take like 73 working days to replenish. So by the time it's replenished, like half the ship has just been destroyed. And it was even worse on higher difficulties because obviously it knocks your health down every time. So like it was 3 or 4 asteroids to hit you and then you'd be dead.
Jesus.
With the remake, obviously you go out and basically calibrate it on its own, which is just so much easier. I mean, granted, there's a few annoying necromorphs that try to stop you, but you know, they're done and dusted by the time you shoot up all the asteroids.
It did take me a while to figure out how to actually do that one. I can remember that because it almost looks like the trench run
because
from
I kept like actually shooting the plasma.
Yeah,
like, I shot the weapon rather than like you press A to target. I was like, oh, that's what I was doing wrong.
Oh, that's how you do it. while we're still talking about the story, we'll discuss the ending. So yeah, as Dan has mentioned, I have been like constantly informing him as to my progress or severe lack thereof over the last week or so.
Dan, what am I doing wrong? I've died to this freaking tentacle 17 times. Are you shooting the giant yellow thing?
It was quite nice to get like a little gif from you saying congratulations on completing Dead Space. You actually shouldn't have done that. Because this is almost like Alien Isolation levels of sudden reveals when it comes to a video game, where you reveal to me that you hadn't actually finished the game. I didn't actually finish this game.
What?
Would you like to know how close I was to actually finishing it? As in minutes.
What happened?
2 minutes. Literally obviously at the end of the game when you're fighting the stupid hive mind bollocks. And that's being generous. I could call it a lot worse. Obviously there's the whole 3-stage thing of how you kill it. Could not get past the second bit. I just kept on dying and dying and dying constantly. And I thought, I'll give it one more go. But if I die one more time and the checkpoint goes back to before you fight it, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Sod that entirely. Because that was literally the only evening I had to actually play it.
That boss fight is really annoying, and I think it's not the same as the original. With the original, it's a lot easier, I think, because it definitely doesn't have that second stage where it just spits a load of crap at you.
Yeah, that bit I wasn't expecting.
You just constantly have to shoot the yellow things on it from what memory serves. And I think it has like intervals where he grabs you and then you've got to quickly like shoot the things around his face.
Well, that's the thing, because there'd already been too many times throughout the entire story where I had essentially rage quit because I could not get past it. And it is one of the games where it's like it's one of those kind of games where you kind of need to give yourself a bit of a breather every now and again, and then go back to it, and then it's nice and easy. No, I wasn't even going to give us the option of that.
I must say that fight checkpoint is just horrendous. Like you're so scared to die because if you get to the final stage and die, you've got to do it all over again.
So I'd literally on the evening, like after I'd just completely given up, I'd gotten a cup of tea and then went upstairs. And I did just find someone on YouTube who would do that entire chapter. Literally about 2 minutes, and then it's the final cutscene. That's all I had left. So I thought, okay, I'm justified in rage quit, and it's not like I'm 17 hours away from this. But it's quite interesting because I didn't explicitly say that I actually completed the game to you. You just kind of assumed, which I was like,
yeah, I just came with the assumption.
That is so nice.
I must have done it by now.
Yeah, I was like, I can just reveal it to him on Monday now. There's like, oh yeah, spoilers. Regan didn't actually finish this bastard.
Regan's psyche finally broke.
Yeah, I was getting hallucinations as well.
You were seeing like
the
engravings on the marker and stuff.
Oh, you know, there were so many instances with that bloody marker. And I'm like, this honestly just feels like Halo, but like kind of like discount Halo for some reason.
Discount Halo.
So like instead of the Flood, you have the Necromorphs. Instead of the Master Chief, you have Isaac. And instead of the Halo ring, you have the Ishimura, which is just a discount version of the Sevastopol and Alien Isolation, even though one of them came first, obviously. But, but yeah, that ending just really got to me. I was like, nah, bugger this. Absolutely bugger it. And again, it's at that point, I'm like, right, can someone just reveal to me if Nicole's actually dead or not? Oh, she is. Brilliant. Get in. Because some of her lines at the end is you're like... Yeah, it's just like, as you're like transporting the marker unbelievably slowly through like a couple of tunnels.
Well,
and, like,
I
every single
take
time...
it that, the Dead Space 2 is pretty much off the map here then.
I mean, I've heard that people really like Dead Space 2 and it's free, so I'll give it an hour.
I'll give it an hour or so.
I'll give it an hour. But I think because I think the later games focus more on action than horror, and I don't know which one I prefer, especially in this one. Like, it would be like turning Alien Isolation into like an action game.
Dead Space 3 is pretty much replacement of the survival horror with action.
Right.
And that's why so many people dislike it, including myself. I really don't like Dead Space 3. It sucks. But no, I love this remake. Total playtime is about 47 hours.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
11 and a half. For me.
It's because I'm just going through New Game Plus trying to get all the like upgrades and stuff, which again is a new feature of the remake, because in the older one there was no like upgrades to like find. You just got power nodes and then upgraded the weapons through power nodes, but you have to find different schematics and stuff to get different, like, I mean, like the plasma cutter for one, it has a really overpowered upgrade, but it's so good. It basically just sets them on fire.
I personally never felt much of an incentive to run around exploring, mostly because of how frustrating the stupid globby mutant things every single time you turned a corner. But I think it's as well, I think one of the reasons actually, and I know this isn't a stealth horror game, but I've really come to realise that I do prefer that. At least for something like Alien Isolation, at least you can go off and hide for a bit, and then the thing will bugger off, and then you can continue.
I mean, you can to an extent, but it's just because of the AI programs. Like, if you go into a further enough room, they'll just not bother you because they're not scripted to go that far.
With something like Dead Space, you do spend more time just looking for ammo and health packs, which I did constantly. Again, I'm on medium.
Yeah,
this should be pretty simple, but
I'd say I explored more on this one because there was more of an incentive to explore. Like, I have to go looking for upgrades if I want to do max damage.
yeah.
And I mean, the whole game has a total lighting overhaul. Like, it's a lot darker. Like, the original game definitely had some moments where you're like, it's creepy and stuff, but this remake is just designed to be an all-out horror experience. Not that the first one isn't, but it's just, they're going to overhaul absolutely everything.
I did appreciate moments like in like a really dark corridor, and the only thing that's like light is when you're aiming like the pistol or something.
That's
actually really effective.
A deliberate addition because they didn't want to make it easy. I mean, particularly with I think when you go to reignite the engines, you have the choice of basically when you put the power capsules in, you have the choice of like turning one thing off for another. So I think one of the examples was you can turn off air support, and then you're going to have an oxygen meter to deal with, or you turn off the lights. So it's like, which one do I want to die to the quickest? Do I want to suffocate or get murdered in the dark?
Yeah, I think I picked the murder in the dark. I think because I hadn't properly dealt with the oxygen thing yet.
You know, I'm a veteran when it comes to like the playthrough of Dead Space, but the oxygen levels just always freak me out.
You know what it is? I think it actually was the pseudo trench run thing of trying to blow up the asteroids. I think it was actually that sequence I had the most difficult with when it came to oxygen, because I kept on forgetting to just quickly go into the settings and then just turn on. Because even though there's a button specifically to reignite your health and reignite your stasis force thing, there's not one for the oxygen. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Unless there is, and I didn't bloody realise.
I don't think there is, no.
That being said, I am the kind of person who didn't realise you could fucking sprint until halfway through the game. So dealing with the brute was a pain in the ass, because like, oh no, it's coming.
They're a lot worse in the remake, I think. I mean, with the original one, you only encounter them 2 or 3 times. I mean, the first time is in that like atrium area, which again is the same as the remake, and then on the Valor, when all the necromorphs have infiltrated and the Twitches make an appearance.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Hammond gets murdered by a brute, but on the remake he just basically chucks himself into the reactor with the very mutant monster Chen.
Good.
Yeah.
I was sick of them both.
Sick of them both.
I was like, stop assuming that he's still your friend. Have you seen him? He hasn't got his face anymore. Just like that alone.
I guarantee one thing you died to an awful lot, or at least a couple of times, is during the Valor, when you go to get the Singularity Core, there's a quick section you have to do, and you have to go through like a like a bomb armory or something like that, and there are like loads of exploding necromorphs. So I guarantee you, at least 3 times, ended up shooting the explosive thing on the necromorphs, and then resulting in you dying because it's blown up all the ship.
Dan,
It's fine. I did too.
it wasn't 3 times.
It was 30.
It was about 30 and a night. And I came back to it in the morning. I was like, right, I'll do it now. I will get into my issues when it came to the difficulty in a bit, because I do have like a major nitpick with it. One thing I actually kind of appreciated when it came to the atmosphere is, yeah, this game does actually get quite scary in places, and it does actually quite work. In particular, when it comes to like jump scares, you do technically have them, but they're quite true jump scares. That being said, I hated how annoying it was whenever the space Skype video call thing popped up, as I'm calling it now, space Skype.
Yeah, the live action feed.
Yeah, anytime that pops up, and when it always starts, it sounds like a growl. And I'm always like, oh, okay, there's someone. No, there's not. It's just dead Nicole trying to ring me again.
Really, brings out the paranoia, doesn't it?
It does, and in one sense, I actually quite appreciate that. So it's still a nice balance, because I wouldn't really call this like an action game until like the second half. And the same with the score as well. Who I believe did the score for the previous 3 games anyway, so we just came back to do this one.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, very much matches the tone of the game very well, and I do actually quite enjoy listening to it on its own.
2's definitely got the original vibe with the score. It's pretty harrowing. It even had I mean, I don't really want to spoil too much, but there is a scene where you go in a nursery and it's just horrifying.
We're talking like a
creepy lullaby tunes and all that stuff, just what you're signing up for.
Yeah, I'd read somewhere that for some reason they put lullabies into the story to make it scary, and I'm like, I mean, lullabies are pretty scary just in and of itself.
Yeah, on their own.
You don't really need to tweak it. But I was sat there thinking, why is that the inspiration for some reason? Obviously, we'll talk about gameplay now, because I think this is where most of my frustrations come from. I mean, I've noticed this on quite a few games more recently, where it's taken me a long time to get used to controls for some reason. I mean, it's certainly quicker than compared to the original, but the amount of times I had to pause and look at the control scheme and be like, right, that's what I do. That's what I don't. That's why I keep on dying. That's how I stop dying. And then also noticing the sprint thing halfway through, and I'm like, you have got to be shitting me.
See, I learned from that, and with every new game I play, I'm like, okay, is there a sprint button? Yes.
Well, that's like that, because more often than not, moving around can be really sluggish, and this is even after I figured out how to actually run.
If you think it was bad in the remake, and in the original, it was worse, man. It was like Minecraft tier clunkiness.
I don't like Minecraft.
I'm not even joking.
No. Although, interestingly, when it came to like gunplay, I don't know about you, but once I unlocked the flamethrower, which was quite useful at times, any weapon I unlocked after that, I never used, and I just put into storage, because I didn't like anything else that came after that.
The only one, I mean, this has remained with me throughout like all the Dead Space games. I really don't like the pulse rifle. I just don't get it.
It can be useful, but the only time it's useful is like the sort of like grenade launcher sort of thing, which I'm never sure when I can actually use, because occasionally it's like, oh, you want to use it? No, absolutely not.
No, you don't have enough ammo for that. No. Yeah, I think when you do the first playthrough of it, the flamethrower pretty much comes your go-to weapon, and every other one just gets shoved in storage.
My go-to actually became the Ripper. That one was...
I think that was the second best one up until maybe like chapter 10, when there's a lot more necromorphs.
Yeah,
and it's just a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of forgotten that the Ripper had like a ricochet sort of boomerang style thing.
Oh, it's great when you get them in like single corridors and you can just bounce it off the walls and just dismembers half of them for you.
Yeah, I think dealing with like the slashes, that one was quite fun. Whenever you just go for the legs and they come down, and then like it ricochets and just goes through the arms, I'm like, that's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work like that though, to be completely honest. This is a thing for me. Usually I can get away with just using like the default controls without tweaking anything. But I really had to mess around with the sensitivity when it came to aiming.
Really?
Yeah. Because half the time I was like, this is glacial. Like, they're right there. Can you please turn, Isaac? Like, they're right there. And he's like, I don't know, to be honest, because I might die.
Slowly.
But yeah, I kept on having to tweak. I mean, even then, I'd accidentally put the sensitivity way too high, and he's just flicking around as if he's on acid or something. Just like, monster. There's so many monsters. But yeah, as I say, I think thing like the Ripper was probably my go-to weapon for a bit. Also with like the plasma cutter, that one was usually quite effective, especially against the little demon babies of monstrosity. Yeah.
I think that's like the most used weapon across every Dead Space game I've played. I always just end up going back to that. I mean, I've used like other weapons for the achievements. I think there's like 3 or 4 achievements in the remake where you basically use like each weapon, you kill 30 enemies with it, and then it's just like right back in storage. Okay,
because we've gone long enough without actually talking about the things you're constantly attacking. I mean, I had to Google the name of the overhead of like these monsters, because I thought you're taking the piss with calling them like a necromorph. I thought they're not called that. Surely that is such discount alien. And then it is actually that. And I'm like, oh come on. And then you were the one that told us they all have names. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. This one is Nigel. This one is Terrence.
The necromorph intervention. The necromorph.
The necromorph support group.
Necromorphs Anonymous. That would be a very messy meaning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this isn't specifically about like the necromorphs, but this is more down to like the difficulty in trying to figure out what to do in this game. Because I have this kind of thing for me when it comes to certain games. This kind of started with playing Tomb Raider back in the day. That kind of game, I flat out refused to go near a guide for, because I always felt a sense of accomplishment whenever you figured out what to do.
Yeah.
And usually it's always like a little thing you can figure out, but it's very rarely to the point of I need the guide to figure out what to do next. There was only one instance, I think, with Tomb Raider Underworld back in 2009, where I had to pause the game for a good few years because I was just completely and utterly stuck. And I still got at the point of like, I don't want to Google what to do next. I want to figure it out. Granted, that's a puzzle kind of thing. This is a bit different. But my God, the amount of times I had to get up the guide because it was never obvious what to do next. And it's one of those things where, like, I do wonder if I'm being nitpicky because I don't want it to be an easy solution, but I want there to be something there that you can sort of pick up on. Like, okay, that's what you do. The amount of times where it's just not obvious at all. The way that I looked at it, I remember talking about it with my girlfriend after I rage quit for the final time. The way you complete the objectives, it's almost like the game is banking on you already knowing what to do. And to me, that's cheating, because usually you wouldn't. I mean, I certainly didn't. I didn't have any experience with the previous game. And like you say, some of it's changed around. Again, this could just be a me problem, and it probably is. But the amount of times where it's like, oh yeah, obviously you like should have done this. And I'm like, how is that bloody obvious? I've got no idea.
It's like, oh yeah, by the way, did you go to there? You should have known.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sort of thinking, how? I think actually the bit that it was the last time you deal with the hunter and you need to burn it with the back of the engines.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there thinking, at no point does it even hint at that being what you have to do. And I remember
I think that's the only time for me where I was like, how the hell do I deal with it? Like, it's not giving me any indication whatsoever. I'm pretty sure it definitely does when you freeze them, because it's like you need to put them in there, freeze the
gate.
The
freezing one I found easy for some reason. I was like, oh yeah, obviously I need to freeze it.
The same with the engine one. I find it like child's play, because all I do is just dismember them, and when you start to regenerate them, put some stasis on them, and then run and burn them. But I bet for you it took like 30 attempts.
the amount of times I was like, right, I have got absolutely no ammo. I've got no more fake force to use. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, right. So I was like, okay, I'll pause this. I'll check what I need to do, and then I'll probably have to let them kill me first. And then it said, oh yeah, obviously you need to cut them up and just leave them behind the engine. I'm like, oh, really? Brilliant. Just brilliant. And then they all just vanish. I'm like, oh, come on, you wusses. Thank you, but you absolute wusses. But obviously we'll go through the many menagerie of monsters, fantastic beasts, and how to die from them.
Fantastic mutants and how to kill them.
Yeah, exactly that too. Like how on earth do you do this?
I mean, you won't know this because you haven't really gotten that far in the original one, but they attempted to make the necromorphs more human-like, to make it a little bit more terrifying. I mean, they have a human appearance in the original game. There are definitely human features, but like the scene in the medical bay with the infected turning the captain into a necromorph, he still retains a lot of the human aspect to his face, and that is just terrifying. Because in the original, they're just covered in like black slime. It just looks gross. And all you see is just these massive yellow piercing eyes.
Yeah, I actually think adding more human elements would have made it a lot freakier.
I mean, it's pretty hard to tell when you get to something like the Leaper, which is just some weird dog-human-alien hybrid.
I called it the Demon Walrus.
I see why you've called it a walrus, though, with those freaking teeth.
Well, considering you forced me to watch Tusk last year, it literally looks like the dude at the end of Tusk.
Let's stop right there. I never forced you to watch Tusk.
No, you just told me very often to do that.
Yeah.
yeah, and so what?
There's a difference.
We mentioned the Brute before. That one, I mean, I felt quite accomplished when I finally figured out how to actually kill it. That's after dying 17 times and not figuring out how to run.
Yeah, they're a lot more difficult in the remake compared to the original. It's really quite annoying because when they sprint at you, they do a ridiculous amount of damage to you. Mm-hmm. Like, if you've got a full thing of health, like half of it's gone.
I think it's like one of only a few enemies where you kind of need to use stasis on them, which I used
you've got to. Like, there is very little way to kill it without it. I think on lower difficulties, you can just, like, shoot it a couple times with a high upgraded weapon and then that'll be it, but you've really got to use stasis, go behind it and just dismember the thing. Just unload everything you've got.
I think it was in that last chapter when you are moving through the actual facility with the marker, and it is the point where it's like, right, let's have one of everything. And I remember just barricading myself in one of the corridors because, they don't know how to use doors because they're thick. And just waiting because I'm like, right, I've got like half health, I've got next to no ammo. How the hell do I do this? And eventually I just wait until it's been long enough, like, oh, he's gone, right, I'll just walk off, and then just completely kick the shit out of it. But even that was, like, the Brute was so bloody annoying. I think the Lurker as well, like the demon baby with 3 arms.
They are infuriating when you're in...
Very infuriating.
Like, bits that have zero gravity, because they can just, like, cling to anything. They are so annoying. They're probably one of the most annoying things in that game. Bar the Hunter, who was just an absolute ass.
And then the stupid Exploder, which, when I had to go and get this... When I had to go into the bomb room, that one.
Because it's like, I'll just shoot the yellow thing.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like...
Because that's how you kill every other necromorph. Why can't I just shoot the big explodey sack thing?
That being said, that bloody tentacle in Chapter 6, just... Nah. That one, I think, was the most frustrating, beyond the hive mind, because that one I did for about 15-20 minutes and then gave up. That one, days. Several days. Like, I can remember literally going back on myself to go and find more ammo and credits, thinking, I must be missing something, surely. And no, I just had to get really lucky. I think it goes back to why I kept on having to tweak the aiming speed, because the amount of times I was like, right, shoot like that, but there. I was like, okay.
Yeah, but like a snail's pace.
It's like he's holding a gun for the very first time in his entire life, and I'm like, dude, have you seen the corridor behind us? It's literally piles with corpses.
Especially that bloody scene, well, that bit where you got to transport the marker through the cargo bit, and there's like every variation of damn necromorph bar a brute.
The tentacles in that one I didn't mind, mostly because they're not pulling you through bloody corridors. They just sort of like pop up, you're like, hello, and then thunk. It was interesting talking about the Leviathan with you because, yeah, I think I struggled with the Leviathan more in the first go. The second one was actually surprisingly easy, which I think even surprised you. Because I think
died
even
more
you
to the
said
second one because I just kept getting whacked by that gigantic tentacle.
That one, I think I died once from, but otherwise I didn't mind it. It was just kind of like, I just kind of assumed it would have popped up a third time. Because I'm like, it's a giant monstrosity thing. I assume we're going to see this thing again. No, we're just going to see a different one. The Twitches, though, was actually quite interesting because you told me, like, I'm going to absolutely hate the Twitches.
I do.
And
I absolutely detest them. They are
yeah,
arseholes.
It was quite satisfying whenever you shot them in, like, the glowy bit on their chest. Like, oh, yeah, then the slow down, like, right, Ripper.
Yeah.
The one actually for me that I've actually found the creepiest was, I didn't know the name of this until when I researched it. I just called him basically a spookier version of Slender Man. And it's the divider. Yeah, the Slendermorph. The divider thing, which I didn't realize actually, like, when you kill it, it then turns into other things. I hadn't realized that even while I was playing. I just thought other ones just sort of appeared.
Yeah, you know what it is? They are so tedious to kill, though, because you spend however much time just shooting the ever-loving shit out of them, and then they just turn into, like, a bundle of limbs that continue to attack you. It's like, oh, there's a head there, there's a foot there, oh, there's an arm there.
I can remember, actually, in the last bit, when you suddenly go into, like, the building, and one of the infectors drops down and starts infecting the corpses around. After I died about 20 times, I specifically crushed every single body in that entire room and in the next one to make sure.
Every room where I see corpses, I just stamp them because I'm like, I'm not giving that little winged bastard a chance.
I call it the face hugger on steroids.
It is. It pretty much is.
And it was just funny, and in that last bit when I finally like destroyed all the corpses, and it just drops down, and it just looks just utterly bewildered. We're like,
yeah.
What is my job now? There is no one here. Just like, right, fine.
What do I do?
Fine, I'll just sit here. You've ruined my life.
I think that the carriers are pretty annoying on higher difficulties.
Yeah, or that other. Well, it's not like they are a bit like the lurkers, but it is literally like something out of the thing where it's just the head and there's just a load of red, spindly things. Like, those were annoying, but yeah, the moths were probably even worse because it's just like every single time you've killed them,
if they get you at an inconvenient
there's one
time
left.
and you've got like 73 necromorphs behind you, then you're just dead. Did you learn how to kill the Guardian the hard way or the easy way? Because I certainly learned the hard way by attempting to approach it, and next thing I know, my head's been lopped off.
I learned the exact same way that I learned how to kill any of the other ones. That being the ultra hard way on medium. Dying
by approaching it and just thinking it was nothing.
Well, I spent half the game forgetting which limbs to shoot on the slashes for them to go down quicker, because I was waiting for the legs, because technically, legs are limbs. No, it wants you to cut the arms off, and I'm like, oh, come on. This is why I haven't had ammo for so long.
Oh, they are just so annoying. I think that they're actually a lot easier to deal with in the remake, because they're intestine arm things. Like, they're marked as like, yes, hit me here. Whereas the original, you just saw big limbs fly out the dude's stomach. It's like, ooh, come get me if you dare.
I will say this, as like we wrap up on talking about this bloody game, I do like it, even though this is the kind of game where I think
even though you haven't completed it because of your psyche just going.
Excuse me, I was 120 seconds away from finishing. I'm like, I'm not gonna waste potentially hours of my life to deal with 2 minutes of a giant sandworm who just will not stop annoying me.
An undead sandworm.
Yeah, that one. So, like, for me, it's the thing. Obviously, I can't go and do New Game Plus because I haven't finished. I am not doing New Game Plus. I am just not.
You had a hard enough time just through the normal, let alone New Game Plus.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I will keep on comparing it to Alien Isolation because there's a lot of it that I feel is quite similar. At least with that one, yeah, it gets really frustrating, hence why I got stuck on a single bit for a few years and just gave up. At least there is a sense of accomplishment when you do figure it out. And I was quite happy to go back to it on nightmare mode 5 or 6 times and be like, yeah, this is fine. I like this.
This is fine.
Even though I'm constantly dying, it's still scaring the hell out of us. This one is just more frustrating than actually fun. So I don't think I'd ever go back to this. I might do in like a really long time. I will try out Dead Space 2 though, because
I think you might find 2 a bit easier, because I think it's designed to be a bit easier.
It's very much like a me thing, because even just looking at the way that you've been reacting to me getting really frustrated about being frustrated, and like I was fine. I don't know what the hell he's on about, to be honest.
So it's not my fault you're shit at the game.
That being said, this has been very fun to chat about, mostly because for once it's now Dan on the receiving end of a frustrating rant on a video game. It doesn't happen very often. And gratefully, I think it was a bit more of a surprise for you.
I kind of knew you weren't going to be overly happy about the game, we'll say.
I think it started
I mean, it's called Dead Space for a reason, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I know what I'm getting in for. Even though the final chapter is just called Dead Space, I'm like, you lazy fuckers. But yeah, that is our ranty, rambly thoughts on the remake of Dead Space. So thank you very much for listening. Be sure to subscribe if you're not. Next week, though, we are returning to our little retrospective series we're doing this year on the Godzilla franchise. And I already made it very apparent we are not reviewing every single Godzilla movie. I have not got the patience for that. So instead, we're going to be looking at a specific aspect of the Godzilla franchise, and that is probably his most iconic and favourite villain.
Oh, his little shit son. Little brat. What's causing problems?
We are not doing an episode on Manila. I am not doing that. I'm not even doing a mini-sword on that bastard.
Godzilla just should have whooped his little ass. He would have put some friggin' discipline into him.
Put a little bit of discipline into him. I'm now just picturing them having an argument and they're just growling at each other. Oh, unless it's the one when Manila can talk. Oh. Now we'll talk about the 3-headed dragon thing, monstrosity instead, because there's more to talk about on that one. So yeah, you can look forward to that next week. As I say, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you then. And until then, it's goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.